Me. All right. So we're going to talk about building a portfolio today. I've built a lot of portfolios in my life. It's like what you do in college when you go to art school. So I'll give you a little quick background on me. I'm a designer. I've been working at Phlogistics here in Oklahoma City for the past year. And we're building some cool stuff, and it all deals with lots and lots and lots of data. So that's what we're doing. I've been designing professionally for about 10 years. It's like 9.5 or something. I'll just round it up. It makes me seem cooler. I've been doing design in general since 2004. I do know HTML, CSS, and jQuery, not JavaScript, jQuery. That's still a thing, guys. It makes Carson really, really mad. So if you want to get a rise out of Carson, ask him how to do WordPress and jQuery, and he will let you know. So I've built portfolios on paper. My first ones were on paper, and so it was like a book, and we would like make these portfolios, and we would put them up on the wall, like the pages, and my professor would come around, and she would say, "That's trash," and she'd rip it off the wall, and she'd be like, "You can do better." So that's a little, you guys aren't going to have that level of pressure here. I've done Flash. How many of you guys have used Flash? Macromedia Flash? Nobody? Am I that old? Okay, we built them with Flash and ActionScript, so things were animated. And then I've done them, obviously, with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I've learned one big thing. Portfolios are hard. Portfolios are hard because you're bragging on yourself. So it's like, you're like, look what I can do. I'm so great. And so they're actually kind of hard. So I put a picture of my family up there. So that's my wife, my daughter, and my son. My son was going to attack the person taking the picture with the shovel. So, that way, if you come back to this slide later, you'll remember who I am. All right, so let's talk about what a portfolio actually is, because a lot of times people think, I'll just throw up a website and that's a portfolio. So a portfolio is technically, it's a collection of your work. It's going to show what you can do. It should ideally have a way for someone to get in touch with you. So maybe an email, phone number, something like that. It should also give a little description of who you are, right? So think kind of along the lines of a resume, like it's going to give who you are. I would say include as much good work as you can. So don't just put something up there because you have something. If it's bad, don't put it up there. And kind of going along with that, focus on the work you actually want to do. So if you're listening to this and you absolutely hate writing JavaScript and you like to design, do not fill your portfolio with JavaScript, because the people that come look at your portfolio are going to say, they're really good at JavaScript. And then you're going to get into a job you don't like doing, or you won't get a job because your JavaScript's not that good. That would be my case. So again, portfolios always seem kind of hard because you're bragging about yourself, you're talking about yourself, but you have to be able to do that. You have to kind of talk yourself up. You can't be like, I'm dirt, I don't know what I'm doing, because people won't, they'll believe you. They'll be like, okay, they're not any good. So you have to kind of brag on yourself a little bit. So now let's talk about what a portfolio is not. A portfolio is not a blog. Nobody cares about your Pinterest recipes or anything like that people put into blogs. This is not a blog. So maybe when you get a little bit further along, it can be a blog, but it's not a blog right now. It's also not a collection of photos. Unless you're a photographer, you don't need photos on your website. It's not Instagram or Flickr or any of that stuff. So, keep it kind of focused. And next, your opinion on absolutely anything. Nobody cares. This is like a resume. So I know this is kind of harsh, but technology you know nothing about, but you have opinions about, don't do that. No, you will make yourself look stupid. So don't do that. Don't talk about religion, even if you're religious. I'm religious, but I keep that off of there because people that are like coming to look at my stuff, they may not be, and I might offend them. So I'm going to keep that off of there. Politics. Don't put politics on there. Because if you're way over on the left, your hiring person may be way over on the right, and vice versa. So just keep it neutral. And don't put any kind of isms on there. I've seen this before a lot in the past. No isms, no racism, no sexism, no isms. Just keep it clean, keep it simple. No dank memes, please, and no cat photos, because nobody's got time for that. See? So I put that in there because, that's like ironic. Okay, whatever. All right, so there's different kinds of portfolios you're going to see out there. Photography portfolios typically have a lot of pictures and almost no text. They're almost always a Squarespace template with this grid of pictures, and they'll be like one word. and that'll be it. Then there's the videography guys, and theirs are always like so busy and so moving you can't keep up with them, and they call those show reels. So lots of YouTube clips embedded in there. There's written portfolios, and those are really boring because it's just lots of text. But if you're looking for a writer, that's what you want. There's design portfolios like mine, so those are going to be printed or they're going to be online. Lots of pictures, some text. We usually use case studies to explain things, like explain why we did what we did. And then there's development, and on a development, we're going to want to see some code. A lot of the good ones have code on them, so remember that. So here's some good examples of portfolios, and they're out of order because of the way I opened it, but whatever. See if we can, look at that, that's awesome. Let's go back to this. Okay, so we'll start with his one, Jolie. Thanks, Kimberly. Kimberly sent me a couple of examples from the group, and then I have a couple of my friends, and then I have mine. So we're just going to scroll through these real quick. I'm going to tell you why I think they're great. This one's great because he gives us a little example of who he is, right? He gives us some nice, just kind of straightforward what he's done, what he can do. He has a link to his resume right here, which is great because it's a PDF, and that means that if I'm a hiring person, I can click that link, download it, and send it to all the people that matter. He also has a picture of himself, which is awesome. If you have a good picture of yourself, put it up there so that way we know what you look like. Next, he has his projects, and he has got app and code, and I'm afraid that if I click one of these, they're going to mess up. It's going to nope. All right, great. So it takes me to GitHub, and I can actually look at his code. So that's awesome. Okay, great. So he's got those. Then he has a contact form, so we have a way to get in touch with him. And then at the bottom, he has social stuff. So find me elsewhere. He's got GitHub, and what is this, CodePen? Nope, freeCodeCamp. And then LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great one if you're trying to get a job, because all the professional people like to hang out on LinkedIn, and they really like that for some reason. All right, we'll go to the next one. This is always great when it doesn't work the way I want it. All right, this is my friend Justin Battenfield. He started off life as a freelance WordPress developer or something like that, and he worked his way up, and then he was the lead front-end developer at Life Church for 3 or 4 years, and then he came and worked at AppMax, and now he is VP of product or something at TBS Factoring. His portfolio is really anorexic. You can get a hold of his resume up here, his work, his contact. His work will just take you, I'm pretty sure it takes you to Dribbble. Yep, and you can just scroll through Dribbble and see everything he's done, and I can't work Chrome apparently. So he just gives you a really quick little blurb about himself, download his resume, and then he has Twitter, LinkedIn, Dribbble, and email. So next, we're going to talk about Clint McManaman. This is one of my heroes. He's been in the design game since 2002. So right now, his website is pretty much just this straightforward deal, but if you click here, he takes you to his portfolio proper, and he uses case studies to kind of show a lot of the things that he's done, which he's done a lot of things. So I like his because it's just really clean, it's really straightforward. He gives you a headline that explains pretty much everything he's all about. If you follow him on any social media, that's what you're going to get. So he's pretty straightforward, and I like that. So if you'll notice, things are really simple. They're really kind of just straightforward. And I know these guys are mostly designers. And then we have Amaya, right? All right. Is that embarrassing to have yours thrown up there? All right. No, I really like this. Again, you give a really quick, just what you can do. You're not reaching out there and saying you can, operate Microsoft Office or something, which is, I've seen that. We have a great little gallery of projects. And then we have them over here on CodePen, which is awesome because this proves to me that you did this. It's on CodePen, so I can go see what you've done. It's awesome. And then we have, and I like this, we have a resume, download the resume, but we also have the certificate. So this gives validity to the claims that you're making that, hey, I have a certificate that proves that I can do what I say I'm doing. And we have contact information. So there's a few examples. I'm going to go back over here now. Oh, I guess we can look at mine. I just went through mine and rebuilt it. So I love the mountains. So I have mountains. I have a blurb about my professional self and my personal self. I have a little section about what I do, and I have 3 big projects that I've done. I'm going to write case studies for those later. And then I have a little chat form. So mine's kind of anorexic, but there it is. All right, so if we come back here. Technology. It's so great when it works. All right, so my thing that I would say is remember to focus on the job to be done rather than the style. It's really easy when you're trying to represent yourself to like get hung up on how things look or whatever. Like, remember that the people that are visiting your site have a job to be done, and that is to learn about you and to contact you. So remember that and make sure they can easily do that. All right, so let's talk about the building blocks to include to make your portfolio awesome. Everybody wants to do that, right? All right, so include your work. That's going to be really important. It's not a portfolio if you don't. It's just like a little web page. So give me work that you've completed, right? You want to make sure that it's done, that you can show it off. Maybe try some work that challenged you. Maybe it was something that was really hard, and maybe you can explain why that was hard and how you got over it. Maybe try some work in progress. Like if it's okay with your employer or if you're just doing things on the side, you can put work in progress and you can explain where you're at and where you're going. You want to do work that showcases your skill. So like the skills that you're focusing on, that's what you want to show. Like I'm not going to cram my portfolio full of code because code is secondary to design for me, so I'm going to go design something and then I'll code it. And I don't really care how the code looks. Well, I care, but that's a different talk. So make sure you also do work that you want to do. Again, focus on what you're after, right? Don't focus on things because I said to do it or because Daniel said to do it, and especially if Carson says to do it. No, I'm kidding, guys. Carson's great. I just had to give him a little dig. But yeah, put work you want to do on there. Like if you want to focus on UI, UX, then go figure that out. If you want to focus on development, go figure that out. If you want to do like machine learning, go figure that out. Focus on what you want to do. Be you, right? So try to put your best foot forward with your work. You want quality over quantity. Show them what you know what you're doing. I would say quality over quantity because I don't want to scroll through a bunch of stuff that doesn't look very good, that isn't complete, that you don't really care about. I'd rather see 3 things that you care about than 10 things you don't. All right, so show your work. That's the next one. Consider using case studies. So that is like laying out and saying this was the problem, this was essentially our hypothesis, this was how we approached it, and these are the results. That's really good because it shows the thought process behind it, not just I copied code from here and pasted code to here and it worked. I don't know why. You want to show why. Explain the technology stack you used. Why did you use React over Vue, or why didn't you use WordPress when it was a CMS, or why did you use whatever you used? Explain why instead of just saying I use these technologies and putting the cute little icons. Like, great, you use those on every project. Why did you choose that? Explain problems you ran into. So like if you're working on something and you had a problem and it was essentially a showstopper, how did you get around that? Did you ask for help? Did you stay up till midnight trying to figure it out? How did you solve that problem? The reason I am stressing this one is because it demonstrates that you're a problem solver and not just hanging out on Stack Overflow, which is sort of problem solving in my case. But it shows that you know what you're doing and you know how to go beyond just the specs. You can actually get out there and kind of solve problems. So think about soft skills, demonstrating those. Like, who did you have to talk to get the specs? Like, how did you figure out what the problem was that you had to accomplish? These are like soft skills that a hiring person's going to want to like hear about. And I wouldn't say like list them out like a bullet point. Maybe it's how you describe the problem, and like maybe the problem was, my company acquired this job and I was required to talk to these people, and then I had to talk to this person to figure out what the users were after, and therefore I chose this technology stack and we ran into this problem and this is how we solved it. And that's all just in a short, maybe couple paragraphs, and then you have screenshots and maybe some code pin embeds showing the code. That's just an idea. You might also think about explaining how you organize your work. How did you organize your tasks? Like what kind of organizational system do you use that shows that you know how to organize your life and you're not living out of a suitcase? There's nothing wrong with living out of a suitcase if you do, but employers don't want your code that way because it's really hard to come back to. All right, so think of your portfolio as a resume with some personality. I know a while back it was really cool to do like these little catchy portfolios that were full of trendy verbiage, but people aren't really after that. So do include your resume someplace to download. Like I said, hiring people want to download that and they want to share it with the people in their group, the people that matter. Do include a link to something like LinkedIn. That's a great place to send people for professional stuff. They love it. Do give us a little about section so we can learn about you. That's a great idea so that, I know you're a real person and, not just something thrown up there. I would say keep it professional, but add just a little bit of your personality. I mean, think about what kind of colors do you like? What kind of pictures do you like? How do you word things? I mean, you don't want to be a robot. You want to have some fun with it. Like, it's not like a science experiment or something. You want to have some fun. So give me a way to contact you, and you would be surprised how many people forget this piece. Like, if you're putting a portfolio up there and your goal is to get a job or get side gigs, I need a way to get a hold of you. And a lot of people sometimes forget that. I know that sounds silly, but make sure you have an email. I would say have a phone number, but when I had a phone number on my website, I got so many spam calls. So, if you want your phone number, that's fine. Social media is fine, but use it with caution. So I have a note about social media, and this is coming from me observing other people. Keep your social media private so that it's your social network and not the world. But if you do want to share with the world, keep it neutral. So maybe if you're going to put your Twitter on there and you're a religious person, don't put a ton of opinionated religious stuff on there. And if you're a political person, don't put your political ideas out there. I mean, we talked about this a second ago, and I'm stressing it for a reason. Don't put any illegal stuff, if you're out smoking big doinks in Amish, we don't need to see that, especially if you want a job. Put no isms, again, no racism, no sexism, none of that. Please don't even give your opinion on it, because you can assume if you put it on the internet, if somebody's looking to hire you, they will find it. And you can assume that if it's borderline offensive, it will offend them. Just assume those things. And also assume that if you put it on the internet, it will never, ever, ever go away. And it will come back to haunt you in 10 years. Just assume those things. They may not be true, but assume them. Because people are going to search for you, they're going to Google you, they're going to do all sorts of stuff. They're not just going to look at your website and go, oh, that was cool, let's hire them. They're going to dig into your past. So that's what they do. All right, here's a few things to consider as we kind of wrap up. And these are just my opinions, so whatever. Consider who your end user is going to be. And this is where I always start. Who are you going to build this for? Is it for somebody who's going to be employing you, either as a contractor or as a job? Are you building it for your peers, kind of like the people in this room? Is it kind of just to show off what you can do? Are you just building it for yourself, just to have something? All three of those things are going to have different outcomes when you're done building it. So as you kind of identify who you're building it for, think about where they're at right now. Like, what kind of position are they in? If it's a hiring person, they're going to be they're probably going to be a business person. They're going to be kind of coming across your site, at work. So you can think about that. Think about their background, because that's going to give you a really big idea into what they're expecting. So if they're this gentleman on the right that likes haha business, he's going to expect certain things. Whereas if it's me, I'm going to expect something else from your site. So if you think about who is going to be coming to your site, and you're going to think about what their background is, you'll know kind of how to, tailor your website to get the result that you want. All right, so again, kind of diving more into that. What is your end user looking for? What kind of position are you going for? Are you going to be a developer, a leader, or are you just a haha business person? And those people seriously exist. They run meetings, and they go to meetings, and they talk about meetings, and they talk about getting stuff done, and they have meetings about getting stuff done, and they never actually do anything, but they love it. So what kind of position are you going for? And you'll kind of want to tailor your site for that. Again, think about what's their job to be done when they're coming to your website. What are they looking for? Are they looking for your work, or are they looking for, what are they looking for? Typically, they want to know about you, and they want to see your work, and then they want to be able to contact you if they want to. And you're looking at maybe 30 seconds before they make that decision, if you're lucky. So why would these people be visiting your site? Is it because you applied for a job? Is it because they just saw you in a forum somewhere? Is it because you taped it to their door? I don't know. I wouldn't do that. These QR codes they're not cool anymore. All right, how did they find you? Did somebody pass them your website? Was it like in a chat? Did they copy and paste it? Check this out. Did they find you like through a user group type thing? I mean, these are all going to kind of dictate, how they approach your site. So I would say have empathy for your end user and make it really easy for them to find what they're looking for, because you're helping them like you if you do that. Remember that they have a job to do and they want to do it quickly. Nobody wants to hunt for things. Even if you think it's clever, they don't. So make it easy for them to find what they're looking for. All right, and finally, just remember your portfolio doesn't have to be perfect. I've struggled with this a lot in my life, and a lot of people I've talked to, especially I remember when we were in college, it had to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Build it to your current skill level. If you're trying to be a developer and you can only write HTML and CSS, that's fine. You can build a portfolio. Just build it, make sure it gets out there. Keep it simple. You don't need a ton of fancy animations or fancy effects or whatever. Just keep it simple. Remember what you're trying to accomplish with it, and make it easy to use. But have fun doing it. That's the other thing. If you want to put some fancier things in there to kind of show your skills and have fun doing it, that's fine too. Just don't feel like you have to. Number one thing is get it done. Because like a resume, this is kind of like the electronic resume, essentially. You're putting yourself out there and saying, here I am, this is what I can do. So if you feel stuck at all, I put this quote up here. This quote's been really big for me lately. It's by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. He says, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So building a portfolio is hard because you have to brag about yourself. You have to handle writing all the body copy for the website. You have to think about doing this and that, and it has to be professional. But it makes you a better developer and a better professional for doing it. Bye, right? All right. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Yes. Right, okay. She's asking for me to repeat talking about case studies, specifically what goes into case studies. Case studies typically highlight a project you're working on. So let's say you were building a project and you had to make a form for the first time, right? So you were responsible for building a form that took in a certain amount of information and sent it somewhere. So you wouldn't highlight the whole project. You might say, within this project that I was working on at work, and you might give a little bit of background about the project. You would say, my task was to build this form. And so you would say, I started by researching the forms, and we came to figure out this was what information was needed. Maybe it was the person's name, an email, and a short message. I mean, this is really simple. And so you talked about how you had a certain technology you were using, and you had to go figure out how to pull those things in when the form was submitted, and you had to talk about how you captured that stuff in the database and alerted whoever needed to be alerted. And so along the way, you can talk about then, you can put in code snippets, you can put in screenshots, you could put in screen captures like video, and then you can kind of elaborate into the results. So maybe the results were because of this, people were able to ask for help, which increased productivity X%. That's typically kind of what you see on most case studies. And I'm coming from a design background a little bit, so it is kind of like problem, solution, result is kind of what you can boil that down to. Did that help? Did that answer your question? Great. Anybody else? No? Oh, oh, go ahead. No, you're fine. It's Daniel. Go ahead.
I heard that you should have like keywords of the type of job or work you want to do on your landing page,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of like drill down. So the more your portfolio is passed down, the more in depth that the people will go into. But I also heard that you should have like additional work to show if you're asked to go on an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you've heard before? And like, would you suggest to have kind of like more in-depth work on the side?
So she's asking about, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking about keywords and extra work. Is that
Right.
okay? So she's kind of asking about like keywords and having more than just what's on your portfolio. So keywords I don't really know about. That's kind of like black magic to me. That gets into like SEO territory, which is not something I'm very familiar with. But as far as having extra work, yes, you will want extra work for an interview. I would say on your portfolio online, maybe putting your best foot forward, but then having somewhere, maybe GitHub, maybe CodePen. If you're into design, maybe Dribbble or Behance, someplace where you can stash other work. And it's not that that work's bad, it's just that you haven't chosen to highlight it as a, quote, case study. Because case studies take a lot of work. Like, you really have to kind of dig in and think about why you did what you did, and you have to go track down the results and stuff like that. So they actually take a lot of work. So maybe it's not that that work's bad in as much as it's just you didn't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? So yes, when you get into an interview, people are going to want to be able to see the different skills that you have, and they're going to want to see different types of work that you've done. And they're going to want to see that you're flexible, and they're going to want to see that you can problem solve. And so by having more work to pull out and show that might not be on your website, you show just that. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I also have clients that I can't show work, so those are my other questions. So I wasn't sure if you have suggestions on like how you provide your skills or show your skills without showing the project or the product that you built.
That's a really good question, and that's a really hard question. I would say, at least in my case, what I've done is I've either asked the client and said, is it cool if I show this, on my portfolio? And you can, if you can demonstrate to them a lot of times that you're not going to give away any trade secrets or anything like that, they will a lot of times say yes if you ask them. If not, the other thing I've had to do in the past is to essentially recreate the project by changing enough stuff that I can so that it's basically not that project. Because really what you're trying to say is, here's a problem and here's how I solved it. And so if it's a fake company and fake data, you're still solving that problem. And I mean, you can probably in an interview, you can explain your situation, and they're going to be cool with it. You just kind of have to be creative in how you solve that problem, because that's a problem in and of itself. Anybody else?
You see a lot of references, even during this talk, you make references to like the web page being interesting and doesn't have a ton of content, it's not really busy. For you, how do you balance, or how would you recommend balancing a busy website trying to convey a lot of things versus a website that doesn't convey enough? Like, where's the happy medium?
Where's the happy medium? The happy medium is if you can look at the website and say, it communicates what you want it to communicate. So if you need a header and a picture and one paragraph tag, you're done. You did it. Maybe you can get in with a few extra stuff, but I've heard this over and over and over again, and I always kind of struggle with it because nobody wants to follow it. But the rule is this: nobody reads anything on the internet. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you seriously read anything on the internet? I mean, and I'm not talking about like you saw an interesting article you chose to read. I'm talking about as you browse the internet. Somebody sends you a link. What's the first thing you do? You scroll. You look at headers. You look at pictures. And if it's interesting, you might read the first sentence of a paragraph. So that's how people typically consume websites, and you have to remember that. Like, if someone sends my portfolio to a hiring person, they're not going to read it until they think I'm interesting. They're going to scroll through there, they're going to find my work, and they're going to go look at my work, and they're going to go, this is not what we want, or, oh, that's so perfect, that's what we want. And then they'll go back and read it. And if they decide they don't like me, they're probably just going to close the tab, and that was it. So the happy medium is saying, I want to communicate this message, and this is what it takes to do it. And when it comes to writing, I've always heard you want to keep it about a 6th grade level, and you want to write out your message, and then rewrite it, and then rewrite it, and then rewrite it, and then rewrite it, and make it as simple as possible. You know, and then basically whatever you have, cut it in half and rewrite it again, because that's how writing goes, and that's why I'm not a writer, because it's kind of hard. But there's tools for that. But does that answer your question? Or awesome. Anybody else? Oh, from Twitch.
How would you go about showing current projects that you are working with somebody else? How would you go about showing out a portfolio of your working on projects?
How would I show a portfolio in a portfolio a project I'm working on with someone else? Is that? Oh, I didn't do the entire thing? Okay. I would highlight the pieces that I did do, and I would not be shy to say I worked with another person, or, you know, maybe even name them if they're cool with it. And I would basically say I worked on this piece, and then so-and-so worked on this piece, and then I took it back and worked on this piece. And, you know, that's actually really good because it shows that you can work in a team environment and that you can communicate, you know, back and forth and pass work back and forth.
So, just to summarize, in the portfolio you have about the person and the profile, basic profile, and but not skill set. Like, say you have 15 different languages and you have worked on 15 different projects with those using those languages. So do we put those information as well, or do we keep the skill sets?
So you're asking about what do you do with like skill sets? So like if you have a bunch of different skills, how do you demonstrate that?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say like in a development environment, it's probably okay to list out, I know these languages, because that's really one of the best ways to show that. But if you can back that up with some projects and be like, in this project I use C#, and in this project I use JavaScript, and in this project I use PHP, and if you can like demonstrate that, that's even better, because then it's not just a list of things that you, quote, know, it's actually demonstrating that you know how to do that. I typically don't list out skill sets because in the design world it's kind of become it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, you can write some code and you can do wireframes and you can do mockups, so that's it. And my portfolio already demonstrates that, so it's like I don't have to do that. So that was a great question. Yeah, I would actually probably list those out somewhere.
So, so when the portfolio that you build is a static web page, or there's a backend server running and pulling data from a database?
It's a static web page. I use Dribbble to host my work, and then I link out to that. I use Jekyll, and it works with GitHub Pages, so it's like free hosting. So you make a GH Pages branch, and you push your code up there, and then you buy a domain name, and you point it to that DNS, and it works. So, so yeah, it's static. I don't do much in that way. You were going to ask a question.
I was going to ask, do you use like Dribbble or Behance as like a supplement to your portfolio if you have a design portfolio, or would you use like Dribbble or Behance like as your portfolio page?
So you're totally asking, let me see, you're asking if I use Behance and Dribbble as a supplement or as my portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually use that as my portfolio. Both of them now have a feature where they like make you a little web page. And so I built the web page that I showed you guys. I'll pull it back up, actually. If I can figure out how to work Google Chrome, because apparently I don't know how to work Google Chrome. There we go. Okay, so I built this page, and then all of these things link to Dribbble. And so I've created Dribbble projects, and then in the descriptions I talk about what I'm doing there and why I'm doing things, and then you have all the different things, and then when I say see more work, that just links to all my Dribbble feed. So there's a lot of things in here that are not too bad, but I didn't put them in there as a case study. just because it didn't really matter to me. So that's how I'm using that, and that, going back to your question, that means because I'm using an outside source, I don't have to use a database, and I can just use a static page to just host some information. So, yes.
Could you click back on your first project?
Or, sorry, you want to see the project, right?
Yeah, so would you include like your case study here, or would you just create another page?
I'm actually, I don't know, I want to make case studies. I haven't done it because they're time consuming. So I've put these, I have basically my last 3 major employments, and I have examples from there, from things I'm doing. So this is stuff I'm currently working on. And inside of this stuff here, it kind of explains, like, each post. I'm explaining what the post is about and like what kind of problems it's solving. So it's sort of a case study, but it's not like a traditional case study. I think if you were to read through that, you would actually kind of get a grasp for what I'm talking about, like what the picture actually means. So I should probably do a better job of actually making a page for a case study, but I was lazy and I have a lot going on, so I just linked to that.
So would you say this is more for the visual side?
So remember that I'm a designer, so everything is about the end picture and showing you how I got to that. Whereas if you're writing code, it's about how you built that thing. So there is kind of a difference there. Any other questions? No? Oh,
How did you choose your domain name for your portfolio?
that's a good question. I tried to get StewartHines.com, and a realtor in Amarillo, Texas had it, and I was really upset, and so I got StewartHines.me. And that's how I chose my domain name. Sorry, I don't have any D&D references. Daniel back there. All right, is there any other questions? Nope. Oh. Sorry. Say that again. Oh, for my, you're asking what I used for my contact form? It's called Formly. And it's Form LY or something. I don't know. I just typed in contact form for static website, and there was like 2 or 3, and I picked Formally because it was open source and free. So I don't know how well it works. It works when I submit one myself, so I guess we'll see. I guess everybody can go spam it right now and send me emails, and we'll see how that works. That'd be kind of fun. Any other questions?
Since we have time this, so in one of your slides, you talked that not put your opinion about technologies.
Oh, so you're asking about, like, when I said don't give your opinion on technologies?
Yeah.
All right, I'll explain that a little bit further. Yo, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so I was thinking that, let's say, I think TypeScript is great for somebody coming from a Java background or a Java right?
Right?
And I can put why I think it's great for Java backgrounds. So is it a negative thing or is it
The only reason I say don't push your opinion on things is because your opinion is a lot of times what I've learned, your opinion. And so while your opinion may be right most of the time, it might not be right all the time. And you may offend someone wanting to hire you or work with you just by your opinion, and you may never even know it because they were reading your blog and they were like, oh, he's so opinionated about this one thing that I just can't get over. I mean, it's silly, but it's trying to take that path of like least resistance, because as soon as you try to say that you know about something, people are going to come out of the woodwork to tell you you don't, and it's just like when I always look at a portfolio like a resume kind of, so it's like I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. But if you know a lot about something and you can prove you know a lot about something, then go ahead. I would say by linking to something like having a Medium account, that's kind of become the new like blog platform, and like just linking to that off your site would be fine if you like to write about tech. But I've seen a lot of people, and myself included when I was younger, just giving my opinion about stuff, and then when you look at it 5 years later, you're like, man, I was dumb. It's just like, or you read somebody and you're like, yeah, you're a total noob. You don't know what you're talking about. So it's like you want to just be really careful when you put your opinion out there. That's all I mean by that. It might have seemed a little strong, but
Like, there also might be a company that uses something completely different, and they're like, they see that you only are drawn to one thing, and they're like, well, we
Well, I
have
think
one.
it's more also if you can put in a very moderate way where it doesn't sound negative, doesn't sound positive either.
Right.
Probably then makes sense. But
yeah. I think both of you are right on that. She was saying, that a company may see that you were writing about something and decide you were totally stuck on that one thing. And he was saying if you write in a neutral way, then it'd be okay. And I think you're both right on that. Like, just, I don't know, just be careful when you're posting your opinion is, I guess the sum of that. All right, anybody else got anything? Oh. All right. So good luck making your portfolios. And we'll see you next time. Does somebody have announcements? Announcements? Okay. Yay.